They left their 7-year-old on my doorstep with a bag of goldfish crackers and a handwritten note. Please watch him. We'll be back soon. They didn't come back that night. They didn't come back the next day. And that's when I realized my nightmare neighbors weren't just loud, they were criminals. Little did they know I was about to destroy their entire world. If you've ever dealt with nightmare neighbors or dreamed of perfect revenge, this story is for you. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, what's the worst neighbor you've ever had? Because today, justice isn't just served, it's strategically dismantled. It all started right after my wife and I welcomed our second child. We'd finally moved into a beautiful duplex. Quiet street, great school nearby, even its own playground. It was supposed to be the dream start for our little family. The first few days were pure bliss. We met the neighbors, an older guy next door who repaired bikes for fun, a friendly woodworker who'd always send his grandkids over to play with ours. Everyone seemed warm, grounded, decent. But then came the upstairs tenants. They looked young, mid-20s maybe, and when we first said hello, they were polite enough. Until the very next day, that's when I opened my front door to find a 7-year-old boy sitting on my porch steps. He had a tiny backpack, a pack of goldfish crackers, and a note scribbled on notebook paper. Hey, could you watch him for a while? We'll be back later. On a school day, my stomach dropped. Who does that? I waited, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Maybe something urgent happened. But hours passed. No one came back. That's when my wife and I made the first of what would be many calls to Child Protective Services. CPS Visit Bay 1. Our friendly neighbors had warned us. They told us everyone in the neighborhood had issues with the upstairs couple. Constant traffic, loud parties, sketchy people showing up at all hours. We brushed it off until we experienced it firsthand. Every night turned into chaos. Music blasting so hard the ceiling shook. People shouting, doors slamming, bottles breaking. Once my newborn daughter woke up screaming at 2 a.m., terrified by the thumping bass that made her crib rattle. I tried talking to them calmly, knocked on their door and said, "Hey guys, could you please keep it down? We've got a baby downstairs." They laughed in my face. Not our problem, dude. Maybe you shouldn't live here if you can't handle noise. That was the start of the yelling matches. Every night got worse, and the landlord, useless. He shrugged it off, saying, "They always pay rent on time. Not much I can do." I felt powerless, like I was trapped in my own home with a circus above my head. But something in me snapped that night when they threw a party that went until 5 a.m. I held my crying baby, exhausted and furious, staring at the ceiling and promising myself chore. This ends, one way or another. This ends. Then came the night everything changed. I was taking the trash out when I noticed their red Mazda 3 pull up, or rather, what was left of it. The front end was smashed in, hood bent, headlights gone. It looked like they'd rammed straight into something and just driven home. They stumbled out, laughing, drunk or high, or both. That's when my instincts kicked in. I called the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I told them there'd been a possible hit and run and gave them the plate number. Figured maybe they'd get fined or lose their license. Oh, how wrong I was! When the cops arrived, they didn't just write a ticket. They arrested the guy on the spot. Turns out that the Dutch bag upstairs had a warrant out for drug trafficking. His girlfriend, entitled woman I1, started screaming at the officers as they handcuffed him. The kid left alone. Again, CPS Visit Fate 2. At that point, I could have just let it go. But my wife, brilliant, relentless, decided to dig deeper. And that's when we uncovered something that would take our revenge from satisfying to legendary. My wife found the woman's full name through Facebook. And once we had that, it was game on. Using public records and some quick online searches, we discovered something shocking. They owed nearly $48,000 in unpaid assets to a rent-to-own company called Easy Home. They'd skipped town from their last address, taking all the furniture, TVs, and sound systems with them. Technically, those items were still owned by Easy Home. They just vanished with them. That's when my wife made one call. She contacted the company, explained that these people were living here now, and gave them the address. They verified everything, thanked her, and said they'd handle it. $48,000. 8 hours later, a sheriff's truck rolled up with a moving crew. I remember watching from my window, sipping coffee, trying not to smile too much. They emptied the upstairs apartment, piece by piece. Beds, couches, TVs, the kitchen set, and that obnoxious subwoofer that used to shake my baby's crib. Gone. Even the dressers, which, by the way, turned out to have bags of drugs hidden inside them. That discovery added another nail to their coffin. The dealer was hit with additional charges for possession while already out on bail. Talk about poetic justice. But it didn't end there. While the sheriff's crew was doing their job, entitled Woman I-1 completely lost it. She tried to attack one of the officers, physically hit him, so they arrested her too, right there on her front porch, screaming and cursing as the neighbors watched. And as the squad cars pulled away, CPS arrived again. The little boy, entitled Woman High-2's son, was finally taken into protective custody. It wasn't easy to watch, but deep down I knew it was the right thing. That child had been neglected, same torn clothes, barely fed. My wife and I used to give him real meals whenever we could. No kid deserves to grow up like that. The drug dealer went to jail for drug trafficking and possession. His girlfriend, the one who assaulted the sheriff, also ended up behind bars. And entitled Woman Fight 2, the boy's mother, she hit rock bottom, but it turned out to be her turning point. Years later, I ran into her at a local grocery store. She looked different, healthier, calm, put together. She recognized me instantly, came over with tears in her eyes and said, "You probably don't remember me, but thank you. You saved my life." So she told me that after CPS took her son, she went through rehab, parenting programs, and therapy. She got a steady job, fought to get her son back, and rebuilt her life. I was speechless. All I could think was, this was the one thing that came out of that nightmare that actually mattered. So in the end, my revenge wasn't just about payback. It was about justice. The drug dealer lost everything, his freedom, his stuff, his operation. His partner got what she deserved after months of tormenting us. And one innocent child finally got a real shot at a better life. Sometimes revenge isn't about doing something cruel. It's about finally tipping the scales when no one else will. And when you do it right, it feels damn good. Looking back, I don't regret a single thing. It taught me that standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, can change lives. And that karma, she doesn't forget. Sometimes she just needs a little help. If you've ever had to deal with neighbors from hell, drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Hit like if you believe in poetic justice, and subscribe if you want more stories where karma shows up in full force. Because next time, you'll want to be here when revenge gets personal.